Kristen.
And I'm Bethany.
And this is Looking for the Middle,
the Christian Girl's Guide to Modern Dating.
We're here to help you date with confidence while honoring the Lord and to show you that your identity and contentment are in Christ. We're going to give you the tools that you need to date successfully and be set up well for success in a godly marriage.
If you've ever felt like you didn't really belong with any of the extremes in dating today, well, you're not alone. Neither did we. And that's why we're here looking for the middle.
Hello, friends. Welcome to another episode of Looking for the Middle. We're over halfway through season 6.
That's really sad.
I know, but it's happy because we have a whole other half of things to talk about.
Okay, fair enough. Yes.
Optimism.
Good job.
It's a gift.
I don't have it.
She's the realist.
I am.
I've learned that pessimists call themselves realists.
Yep.
My mom does that.
And I will say, I am a realist with a slight pessimist bent.
Okay. At least you're aware.
I mix well with other realists who have slight optimist bents.
Okay.
I have found.
Okay.
I don't deal well with optimists because I'm like, I just don't believe them.
Well, that's disappointing.
It's fine, but you're like, oh, look, second half. I'm like, yeah, fun, whatever.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Basically what you're learning is that Bethany doesn't believe any of my optimism.
No, I don't. I don't believe people actually think it, I guess, which is weird.
That is weird.
I don't think you're lying to me. I
No.
know you think it's true.
Yeah, I do. That's
but
fine.
I just don't. I'm like, okay, whatever. And it's not just you, it's everyone.
Okay. There we go.
See, I'm realistic about it. Oh, goodness.
Gosh. Do you want to talk about the newsletter really
I was so excited for your question.
Yeah. You were so ready.
I was. Okay, guys, if you don't know already, we have a newsletter that we've been doing. It's been for a while now.
Season and a half.
Yeah. So if you haven't signed up for that, make sure you do. We send that out every Thursday. It's a fun collection of resources pertinent to the topic that we have discussed that week. So if you want to sign up, you can go to our Instagram bio, LFTM_podcast, and sign up at the link there, or go to our website, lookingforthemiddle.com, and there's a newsletter sign up button there. So if you want to hear more thoughts and stuff like that, go fill that out and get signed up. And while you're there, you might as well follow us on social media if you don't already. We love hanging out with you guys, especially on Instagram. I think we say every time, we're not really on Facebook all that much, which really means we're never on there. So if you want to actually talk to us, head over to Instagram, follow us there, LFTM_podcast. That is where we'll be.
We're not far from 1,000. We're like at 900 right now.
Woo!
If y'all just want to go help us out with that, that'd be
be
great.
awesome.
Okay, question of the day. Ready, Bethany?
Yes.
She's ready because she knows what's coming. We cheated on this one. What is the most exciting thing that's happened to you in the last 2 weeks?
Well, I thought I had my answer, but then on my way here to record today, I went to McDonald's and I had to go inside because their drive-thru thing was broken. Long story. So anyway, they were being kind of rude to me. And so I went in there and I was just going to be very straight-faced. And I wasn't going to be rude to them, but I was not impressed with their rudeness. So I'm standing there waiting on my food, and the lady's about to bring it to me, and I had to sneeze. So I'm standing in McDonald's, and I had to sneeze. And so everyone,
Which is like a cardinal sin or something these days.
And of course, I didn't have a mask on because I had gone through the drive-thru. I wasn't planning to go inside. I didn't even have a mask. So I'm standing there and I sneeze. So then I had to be like super nice to them after I was being so good at being like super straight face. I had to be like all super nice and don't worry, I'm fine after, because I just sneezed in their restaurant. That was my most exciting thing today so far.
Yes.
But my real thing probably was a deer ran into my car a couple weeks ago. So that was pretty exciting.
I laugh because, y'all, there's a difference in you hitting a deer and a deer running into your car. And Bethany and I have both now had the experience where the deer ran into us.
I was just like going down the street. It wasn't like, oh, there's a deer way off up there that ran across and I couldn't stop. Like, I'm just driving down the road and this deer bounds across the road straight into the side of my car.
It's terrifying.
It like bounced off down the side and ran off into the woods. But like, yeah, so that's probably the most exciting thing. I was really close to home, so I just went home because it was drivable. It was like 10 o'clock at night on this busy street. I wasn't about to stop in the dark on a busy road by myself. So I got home, which is a good thing that I went on home because I got there and I couldn't open my driver door because like it had bent it just enough that it wouldn't like open right. So I had to like call someone to come let me out of my car.
Please don't make me sleep in my car.
Yeah.
Can you also tell them about your sheepskin leggings that you found in Walmart?
My sheepskin leggings. Okay, so this is turning into quite the story time with Bethany. But so my car's in the shop, obviously, has been for close to 2 weeks now. And my grandmother, who lives like a mile and a half down the road from me, doesn't drive anymore. My grandfather drives her everywhere. So they have her car sitting there that they were like, you can just use it till your car is out of the shop. Great. It's typical like old lady car. That's what I call it. It's my old lady car. And in true old lady fashion, she has these like sheepskin seat covers on her car, which I've never, dealt with firsthand because I'm not an old lady. Well, yes, yet. I feel like I'm aging rapidly driving this car. But anyway, so I've been sitting on these sheepskin covers, and I had on my black leggings the other day. I was going to Wally World, got there, went inside, and for whatever reason, I needed something out of the home decor section. And I just happened to walk down the aisle of mirrors. And I looked over and I was like, what in the world is on my leggings? Well, apparently, I don't know if it's all pants or just the leggings, like pull at those little sheepskin covers, because half of the sheepskin cover, I think, was down the back of both of my legs.
What I wouldn't give for the security footage of this.
Standing there, like looking in the mirror, like what has happened to me? And I'm like, rubbing my legs, trying to get it all off. And I realized, oh my word, it's those sheepskin covers. So I literally went from the home decor section to the bathroom section and bought a towel and put it down on the seat cover when I got out to the parking lot, because I had already tried to take the covers off, and I can't figure out how they're like attached. They're like jimmy rigged some weird way. I can't get them off.
Oh, wow.
So I have this towel just still in there. Still got the tags on it from Walmart, just sitting on the seat that I've been sitting on ever since.
I really want to go to Walmart and be like, can you give me the footage
this day and
at this time? There's a girl like freaking out in front of the mirrors. I just really need to see this happen.
Oh man.
Yeah.
So yes, that's been my most exciting thing.
Man. I mean, I don't even know how to follow that. Let's be honest.
It's okay.
Oh, gosh. No. We just asked that question so she could tell you all that story, because I was laughing so hard yesterday when she told me about it. I was like, we've got to figure out a way for you to tell that on the podcast, because I feel like our listeners would appreciate that. The most exciting thing that's happened. Keep in mind, we're recording this, the second week of March? Third week? Is this the third week? This is the third week. Good night. This year is flying. Let's see. Oh, I made the tennis playoffs with Matt.
Oh yes, that's super exciting.
We won our division.
They killed everybody,
which was I was not expecting that at all. I literally went to the season being like, if I just win one, I just don't want to lose every match. Like, I just want to win one. And we won all of them. So we're undefeated. We have our first playoff match tonight. By the time this airs, playoffs will be over. So who knows?
We'll come back to it.
I'll get on Instagram and tell y'all how it went. But also, I think this episode comes out the week of my birthday.
Happy birthday to you.
I'm pretty sure. The day before my birthday.
You.
Future me. Oh, man.
You'll be older then.
I will be older then. But yes, not nearly as exciting as having sheepskin fur all over me in a Walmart. But fun nonetheless. Okay.
I'm just glad it was Walmart and not Target. I mean,
the judgment factor just skyrockets as soon as you walk into Target. Okay.
But Walmart's cheaper, so I keep going there.
That's true. That towel was probably a lot cheaper at Walmart.
It was like $2.97.
There you go.
I mean, I didn't get a high quality towel. I'm just going to be sitting on the thing. Just needed a barrier.
Oh, man. Wow. If y'all ever wonder what it's like to be friends with us.
You know what I should have done?
What?
It would have been a lot more interesting and accomplished the same purpose for the car. I should have gone up there and gotten like a roll of tarp and some rope or something. And
you look like a serial killer.
Yeah, that would have been a lot more interesting.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, what an opportunity
I
wasted.
hate that your mind works like that.
Man. It would have been a little noisier in the car. A little crinklier to sit on like a tarp.
Yeah.
That would have gotten it.
That's my tarp impersonation.
Yeah, exactly. Just like that.
Wow. All right. I don't really know how to segue from that.
I don't either. So we'll just jump right in, guys.
Jump in.
Oh, we will forego the segue.
Yes.
Okay. So you guys have seen from the title of the episode. Today we are answering the question that we've probably a lot of us asked of ourselves at one point or another. I'm not saying it's right or that we should have, but we've probably all, when we've looked out at our single plight, we have said, okay, Lord, what what more do you want from me? Like, I'm doing all these things. What else do you want? And that's really like the origin behind the question, is we're thinking about like, okay, I feel like I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do, you know, quote unquote. I'm involved in church. I'm consistent in my quiet time. I'm giving. I'm putting myself out there. I'm being social. I'm doing all the things and I'm checking all the boxes. What more do you want from me before I get a husband or a boyfriend or just go on a date? Like, what else am I doing that I shouldn't be, or am I not doing that I should be? Like, where am I going wrong? What do you want from me? That's the start of this question. And I think we've probably all, like I said, asked ourselves this, thought this, maybe even said it at some point or another. And so we're just going to kind of dissect that and look at the motivation, the reality of whether or not that's true, and just all those different things.
Yeah, because it's hard to come to terms with the fact that like you can be, doing all the right things, quote unquote, and still be single.
Yeah.
Because there are so many other areas of our life where if you do this and you do that, you get a desired result. You think about like, okay, if you work hard at work and you put in the time and you produce whatever, you will get a raise, or you'll get promoted, or you'll get a bonus or something. Or
right.
Like we both played sports growing up. You practice, you put in the time, you work at home, you're going to get better. You're going to get more playing time. Like, you're going to be more successful. Your dating life doesn't work that way.
Right.
You can't just be like, oh, I'm going places and meeting people and I'm doing all the spiritual things on top of that. Lord, do you notice? And you're not guaranteed.
I'm waiting.
Yeah, you're kind of waiting for that. And so it's almost like our minds have been ingrained to expect the same process to be true of our dating lives as it is in other areas.
We totally do. And I think the flip side of that, though, is then we also, without even thinking about it, view singleness as a punishment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And marriage as a reward.
Exactly. Which it's not. It's two different paths with very good things, just different.
Yeah. And keep in mind, I have to remind myself of this quite a bit. And we've talked about this pretty much since we started the podcast. Like, God doesn't owe you a husband, and he doesn't promise that either. Like, marriage is not a promise you get in scripture.
Right.
And he's not going to give you a husband or a boyfriend based on good behavior. And when you really boil this conversation down, like, this is almost like the prosperity gospel adaptation for dating.
It totally is.
It's, if I do all these things, then God's going to bless me with a man. Mm-hmm. And if you think about it, I'm going to say this very nicely. This kind of goes back to like the same conversation, like, if you're just content in the Lord, you'll get a husband. No, not every married person I know has been content in the Lord. First of all, not even I know, just married people, period. You cannot tell me every single person with 2 rings on every girl with 2 rings on her left hand was totally content in the Lord when she got married. Same thing here. Like, people get married who may or may not be walking with the Lord. Like, this is not you've reached a certain level of spiritual maturity. You've reached a certain level of,
sanctified.
Yeah, sanctification. Sanctifiedness.
Couldn't think of the word. Move along.
As many words as I have butchered on here, I just need to sit in that for a minute. Sanctifiedness. That will come back. Okay. I will bring that back. Okay. After the whole cognac thing.
I don't think they know about that.
Yeah, they do. It was in the blooper reel.
Oh, okay.
If you've forgotten, season 1 blooper reel, or 2, I can't remember. It's worth your time. Sanctifiedness. But yes, you can't just like think, I have to get to this level and then I will be given. That's not how this works at all.
No. And I think this kind of flows really perfectly on the heels of last week's episode, where we were talking about that whole thing of asking that question of, okay, if you would just fill in the blank, whatever it is, then you would meet someone. And we hear that a lot from other people. And if you listened to last week's episode, you know those answers run the gamut. But we have that mentality ingrained again in a lot of our thinking that, okay, A plus B equals not being single anymore. But this is not something that's a formula to be solved. And this is also not something that is like the trajectory of your life. Like, I think especially in Christian circles, That's like the thing you're going after. That is the thing you are trying to achieve, and all of those, when in reality our trajectory in life should be our sanctification. It should be becoming more like Christ. It should be that as our focus. And if we get married and are able to continue pursuing Christ in that way, awesome. But that marriage, and that is not our trajectory in life, trying to achieve that ultimate goal.
Mm-hmm. I actually got a message on Facebook a few weeks ago. Well, it was recent when we're recording this, but when it's released, it'll be a few weeks ago. And I'm not going to read it verbatim or anything because I want to protect the privacy of this girl who was really sweet. She sent me this really long message, and she had just listened to the open letter on singleness episode. And she was talking about how she never really dated before, and she's recently gotten into, recently being like a good recently, but like a relationship. She's engaged, she's getting married. And she was like, Kristen, this episode hit me so hard because it's almost been disheartening how much more accepted I feel.
Yeah.
Because I'm engaged now. And all of the she's a missionary overseas. So all of the messages I'm getting from people and the acceptance, it's almost like the assumption that I have spiritually arrived. Like that,
it's like the equivalent of moving up from the kids' table.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
That's exactly how she described it. She talked about how she was really passionate about continuing having conversations like this because it was really heartbreaking to her that's all that she's like, I haven't changed that much. No. I haven't even hardly dated. This is my real first serious relationship. It just happens to be the guy that I'm getting married to.
Yeah.
And yet it's like I've graduated. Mm-hmm. And so I think that while, yes, a lot of these thought patterns we kind of run with, I think in ways the church hasn't done a whole lot to help us overcome this. Yeah, of like, oh, if you'll just do this, if you'll just do that, if you'll be more spiritually mature, if you'll XYZ, then it equals marriage, which is the ultimate, But yeah, it's sad that that's the perception we have, and the perception that, like you said, is reinforced.
Well, and that's what when you said the perception we have, it kind of made me think it's not really just a perception that we have, like based off of her message and things like that. There is a difference. You are treated differently. You are seen differently. So whether it's true or not, it's not true that you are more spiritually mature automatically when you get, like, those are not true things, but it is true that there is a difference in how you are viewed in the church.
Yes.
I'm not saying it's right, and I'm not saying it's based on truth, but that is a fact that there is a difference, and there shouldn't be.
No, not at all. And yeah, it was just, I was really encouraged to hear from her, for her to talk about like even her life season now, how it was encouraging to her. But at the same time, every time I hear a story like that, I'm just like, golly, what are we doing? Like, why is this? Like, I wish we could send that. If you haven't listened to that episode, the open letter to the church about singleness, is that what we called it? I highly recommend. It's from last season. You go listen to that.
Yeah, I think if you're trying to open up dialogue or conversation with maybe people in your church who are single, who are married, who are in a different stage of life, who don't seem to really be getting it, I would say last week's episode, answering that question of if you would just blank, then you would find someone. And then also, the open letter to the church on singleness. Send those two. Let us open the conversation for you. Like, if you don't really know how to like start that, send them an episode. Be like, hey, I just listened to this. Would love for you to take a listen, and then let's talk about it after. Something like that. And then we'll rip off that Band-Aid for you.
Yeah, exactly.
We don't know them. There's no...
They can hate us. It's fine.
It's fine.
It's fine.
But yeah, I think those two would probably be the best ones to kind of get that dialogue going. And then if you do have those conversations with someone, we would love to hear how it went, what you took from it. Maybe your perspective changed. Maybe theirs did. Like, what did that spark in that conversation? We'd love to hear about that.
Yes, for sure. And so I think as we kind of ask ourselves this question, or we think about asking ourselves this question before, God, what do you want from me? Knowing where our heart is when we ask this question, knowing how it's kind of elevated by other people within the church, it's important to figure out okay, what are my intentions in doing what I'm doing?
Yes.
That make up the, hey, what more do you want from me background, I guess. If I'm doing this, this, and this, what more do you want? Okay, well, why are you doing this, that, and the other?
Yeah. Why are you asking that question?
Yeah.
Why are you asking it? Should you be asking it? What does it say that you're asking it? We're going to kind of get into answering all those sub questions here, as we go through the rest of this.
Yeah. So if your intent behind doing all of the quote unquote right things, so growing in your faith, being social, having a consistent quiet time, whatever that looks like, if your intent behind doing all those things is solely so you can meet somebody, then one, you're going to feel like a failure if you don't, because that's your goal. If you think about in any area of life, the goal you set, you could be wanting to lose weight. So if you exercise and eat right but don't lose weight, you feel like a failure. If your goal is just to be healthier and you exercise and lose weight, well, then you don't feel like a failure because you are being healthier, whether, you see a number on a scale change or not. So the same goes here. If you're doing all these things with your friends and you're going out all the time and you're trying to be as spiritual as possible so that God will give you a husband, and you don't get a boyfriend or get a husband, you're going to feel like you failed. And not only that, but your heart isn't going to be in the right place for you to get the most out of these things you're doing.
Yeah.
And that's where you're really going to miss out, because you can be social because you want to meet a guy, or you can be social because you want to create community and you want to deepen your friendships. And if you're only going to social interactions hoping to meet somebody and you don't, you're going to be sitting there at the restaurant or at, the main event or wherever. I don't know where you're going to hang out these days, but
you kids.
Yeah, for real. The youths. If you're scanning the room the whole time for your future husband, you're not going to be attentive to the friends you're there with, to the people you could be talking to, people you can be deepening, relationships with, and you're going to miss out. Whereas if you're there to just have a good time and hang out with your friends, then you're going to have a great time. And if you happen to meet a dude while you're there, great. If not, you don't walk away thinking, well, that was a waste of time.
Exactly.
And there's a difference.
And that rubs off on the people you are with.
Yeah.
They will pick up on those things.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not fair to your friends. Like, think about if you were the friend, if you were one of the ones there, and you're like, wow, she is totally just using us.
Yeah. Well, and
to try to meet someone.
Yeah. And from an onlooker's perspective, you think about, like, if I were at a restaurant and I'm observing there's a table of cute guys over, across the restaurant, and I'm kind of like, and one of them seems to be, having a great time. He's talking, he's laughing, he's engaged with his people. Whereas if you have the guy on the other end of the table who's kind of, just looking around or making eyes at people, I'm like,
what's his deal?
What's your problem? Like, why are you not having fun? Like, it's more attractive typically when you can see somebody that's fully present, who's having a good time, and who is actually, engaging in what the atmosphere has to offer, not just, looking everywhere they go like it's a meat market that you're just walking through like, who am I going to talk to tonight?
Yep.
And the same goes with your faith. If you are trying to grow in your faith because you want God to reward you for good behavior, one, you don't negotiate with God. You can't be like, oh, if I do my quiet time every day for a year and I spend this much time in prayer and I go serve at church, then you better bring him on.
I would contend with that. Are you really growing in your faith by doing those things, or are you just checking
You're
boxes?
Checking a box. It's a legalistic heart attitude to have. Whereas if you're truly trying to grow in your faith because you want to become more like Christ, you want to honor him, you want to develop more sanctifiedness.
Trademark.
Yep, there we go. Just drop that in. Then you're really going to get the most out of your time with the Lord, and you truly are going to grow. And again, your attractiveness to a guy who loves the Lord, because it's genuine that you're growing in your faith and not, oh, I check off the 14 boxes of holiness every day, but I don't get anything out of it because I'm waiting for God to reward me for, getting an A on my Christian quiz that day. Like, it's totally, it's all about your heart posture and what how you're approaching it.
Huge difference. And just like I was saying, if you're doing kind of that first one of just checking boxes, are you really growing in your faith? I don't know that you are. Mm-hmm. And then With this, though, when you are truly focused where you should be and truly wanting to become more like Christ, and you're wanting to glorify him with everything in your life, then it is unavoidable that your satisfaction and your contentment in him, because you're seeing what his character truly is and you're seeing who he truly is, and you're deepening that relationship, those things are going to elevate and become so much more to where you're not going to like lose this desire to get married. I almost wonder if at times people are like, well, if I become too content in the Lord, or I'm too satisfied with him, what if I don't want to get married anymore? What if, like he's going to forget that you wanted a husband? And that's not the case at all. And so that desire, it's not that you'll lose it or that you'll forget it. It will be in its right place.
Exactly.
Which is under becoming more like Christ and under being satisfied in him. Because if you think that getting married will fix those things, you'll have a rude awakening for you once you do get married too, because you're still going to have to put that under you're following the Lord.
Yeah, and we talked about that in an episode a few weeks ago. The premise of the episode was how to stop idolizing your boyfriend. You can idolize looking for a boyfriend just as much as you idolize an actual guy. And so if you haven't heard that episode, or maybe if you want to go back and listen to it again, but in a different light of, hey, maybe I don't have a boyfriend yet, but that doesn't mean that idolatry isn't a problem, because if you get so locked in of everything I'm doing is solely for the purpose of getting a boyfriend, then you have idolized that desire above your desire to draw near to the Lord. And so, like Bethany said, where you place that desire is going to determine how you view God's character.
Absolutely. And so let's talk about that as we've kind of walked through the motivations behind asking this, what you may be thinking. Let's kind of look now at what asking this question is really saying about your view of God's character, and then we can assess whether we really should even be asking this question or not. So let's start with, okay, I'm asking this question, Lord, what more do you want from me? I'm doing all the right things. I'm doing what you said. I'm doing what you want. Why am I not getting this thing? What does that say that your view of God's character is? First of all, it's very centered around you. I want this. I want that. You give me this. I'm doing what I'm supposed to. Why are you not giving me what I want? Instead of saying, Lord, what more do you want from me? Like, what more can I do? Like, that should, I think, be more the question we're asking of, I know I don't deserve any of these things in my life. I know I don't deserve all of your grace. And yet I have it. So what more can I do for you? Not what more do you want from me? I think that is probably a more accurate way of asking that. It's not as self-focused.
Well, because God doesn't need anything from you.
No.
Like my whole, anybody who's a perfectionist or anybody who's, a rule follower even thinks like, oh, well, I need to do, like, this is what I'm supposed to do. And this is what God doesn't need you for anything. If you want to get real blunt about it and really take a humbling perspective from it. Does he want you to follow him? Yes. Does he want you to be obedient? Yes. Does he want to use you as a part of his plan to further his kingdom? Yes. But all of that happening is not contingent on you. No. And you elevating yourself to thinking like, oh, well, what do you want from me? And why do that? Again, so many times saying me, I, me. And I think any time we're praying, obviously your prayer is personal and it's concerning you to an extent. But how many times are you saying I, me, my, I want this, I need this. What more do you want from me? What do you expect from me? Me. Really take into consideration how many times you're using those words. Yeah. And like Bethany said, reframe it. Okay, Lord, what can I do for you? Yeah. How can I follow you? Yeah. Yes. Like, I want your will. Again, not my will, but yours be done. Jesus even struggled with that tension. And, so it's human to struggle with that. But
Jesus struggled with that and he was without sin.
Exactly.
So struggling with that tension is not sinful. Taking it to the Lord. I mean, Jesus said, if there's any way, remove this cup from me. He wasn't like, ooh, yay, going to the cross. He didn't want that.
Which can we just sit and think about that for a second? Because when I spoke about Israel to my mom's classes a few weeks ago. And so I showed him pictures of the Garden of Gethsemane, and we were there. And I remember sitting there thinking, gosh, you were perfect. And you still were like, can you please just not make me do this? And it's so comforting. It goes back to that verse that y'all know how I am with references, but talking about how no temptation has, basically come to you that the Lord has not faced himself, or like we have a high priest who understands what we're going through. Like, so much of what we struggle with can go back to just that one moment in the Garden of Gethsemane where he's like, Father, if there's any way, just take this cup from me. Like, I don't want to do this, but if it's your will, then I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
And
none of that was sinful.
No.
So there is nothing sinful about saying, Lord, I do not want to be single for the rest of my life. I want to meet someone. I want that in my life. That is a desire that I have. It is a good desire. It is from you. Like, they're good things. And Lord, that is what I want. But then you stop and you say, but what I want more than that is for your will in my life to be done. Mm-hmm. There's nothing wrong with admitting that. There's nothing wrong with telling the Lord that. But truly saying, that aside, I want your will for my life. Mm-hmm. That is being like Jesus.
Yeah.
He did the same thing. So,
yeah. And I think we have to get rid of the shame that comes with asking for what we want. As long as you are, again, praying in accordance with the Lord's will, it's not a bad thing to have desires and to want things.
Yes. And
I feel like for whatever reason, sometimes single people can struggle with feeling shameful that they want to be married.
Yeah.
And that's nothing to be ashamed about.
No.
So you don't have to feel bad because you're not sinning and having a desire, but it's when, again, you elevate that desire, or when you get so bent on that desire that you refuse to comply with the will of God, right. That's where the sin comes in, and that's the difference here.
Yeah. Okay. So then, that was a really good tangent. Mm-hmm. I'm glad we went there.
I'm glad we went there too. So I love our tangents.
But going back then to what is asking this question of God, what more do you want from me? What does that say about your view of God's character? So first, it centers around you. Secondly, it views God as being unkind. Because what you're telling him, okay, what more do you want from me? You're withholding this good thing from me, marriage, a boyfriend, whatever it is. You're withholding that from me for no legitimate reason. And because I'm doing everything, I'm doing all the things I'm supposed to, and you're just not giving me this good thing that I want. That's not a very kind thing for someone to do. And we know that God is so kind. He's all of kindness. And so that is a very warped view of his character when you're asking that. It's because you're viewing him as this unkind God who's just enjoying withholding this good thing from you.
Yeah. And if you want to kind of explore more of, is God really kind? That was the question that Annie F. Downs answered in her book, Remember God, that came out a few years ago. It's probably my all-time favorite book. I'll link it in the newsletter. But that's the whole premise of her trying to figure out, like, is God really kind? Like, I know he's good. I know he's in control. I know he has a plan, but is he really kind?
Yeah. And
it's a phenomenal book. So I'll put that in the newsletter for y'all. But because it is, and you would never say, like, oh, God is so unkind out loud. Mm-hmm. But then when you boil it down to when you struggle with these things, of like, okay, well, what kind of person withholds something really good?
Right.
Well, he doesn't, which we'll get to in a minute. But you're tempted to go that route with your thoughts of, if he loves me and he cares about me and he wants what's best for me, then why the heck is he not giving me this?
Right. Well, and that's where you have to stop and tell yourself, okay, no. Here are the things that I know to be true about God. I know he's kind. I know he loves me. I know he wants my good. So if these things are true, but it doesn't feel like they're true, or my perception of reality over here would indicate that it's not true, what in this scenario needs to change? My feelings, my perception of reality, my thoughts, all of that's what needs to change. And that's what, we talk about. Speak truth to yourself. Take your thoughts captive. That's what that looks like, of stopping in that moment and saying, okay, no, I know God is kind. I know he is good. I know that he loves me. So that is truth. I'm telling myself that. And I speak that truth to myself. I take my thoughts that are contrary to that captive and I put them away, put them off to put on those true thoughts and walk in that.
Yeah, it's informing your feelings.
Exactly.
And instead of letting your feelings inform the rest of you.
Yes.
Okay, so another way that asking this question could affect how you view God's character is that you can start to think that his love for you is contingent on your performance. And again, going back to my fellow perfectionists or rule followers or whatever, again, in every other area of life, you follow the rules, good things happen. And I really this was one of the first, I guess, quote unquote, big lessons that God really taught me when I was a freshman in college. Because growing up, and I didn't ever think my parents' love was contingent on my performance at all. Let me just say that. But I was the compliant child. My siblings were rebels. And so when I followed the rules, when I did the right thing, not only did I get praise, which we all know words of affirmation is my love language, but I would get rewarded in the sense of I got to stay up later. I was trusted to go do things because my parents knew I wasn't going to do anything stupid. I, had a later curfew, whatever it was. And so in a way I started to think, oh, well, if I do this, then God's going to reward me for that because I've seen this happen. I know he still loves me regardless, but good things are going to happen if I do the right thing. And I had to come to the painful realization that, honey, that's not how this works in God's economy. It's just not the same. And his love and his gifts and blessings they're not contingent on whether you do the right thing or not. And I mean, you reap what you sow. Let's talk about that for a second because, Galatians 6, you reap well, you're going to sow well. Or you sow well, you're going to reap well. I always mix them up.
Vice versa.
You sow well, you're going to reap well. If you don't, you won't. But just because you sow all the right things, quote unquote, like we're talking about, that doesn't mean what you think you're going to reap and what God allows you to reap are going to be the same thing. I was going to
say reaping well is that you become more like Jesus.
Yeah.
You become more selfless. You become more humble. You become more others focused. Whatever the situation may be. It's not that I did all these nice things, so now I get what I want. Well,
and I think we need to get out of the mindset, too, that all of our rewards from God are tangible.
Yes.
Because we think, I'm going to get this job I really want. I'm going to get a husband. I'm going to get this. I'm going to get to, whatever. And it's like, no, it's not always going to be tangible. You may grow in perseverance. You may, become more hopeful. Your trust in God may develop just leaps and bounds from what it was. You may, get the chance to, share your testimony with people because, you've been faithful to share it with a couple people. Okay, now you may get asked to go share it with, 50. I don't know.
Yep.
But it's not this tangible thing, and even just an earthly thing. We get so bogged down with, what's right in front of me is all there is. And it's we have a whole eternity to look forward to.
That's exactly what I was going to say too, is not only are they not necessarily all tangible, they're not all tied to this world. I don't think it's not just for right here and right now, whether that's eternity, whether that is 20 years down the road. It's not all about right now, right this minute. Yeah.
So we've got to really, again, we always talk about shift your focus, shift your perspective of, it's not all about right now. It's not about what's right in front of me. Yeah. And it's not about tangible, visible rewards. It's God may have something great for you down the road. God may have something great for you when you get to heaven, for, or for you to be, even just to see and realize what effect, God using you on this earth has when you'll never realize all of that while you're here. And I cannot wait for the day where we get to be like, oh my gosh, look how he did this and look how this connected and look how, I never knew this happened. How cool is that?
Yeah.
That alone is huge.
Oh, it totally is.
And so,
well, and maybe the reward or the good thing, I think you mentioned this, is that you trust the Lord more. That may be the good thing.
Yeah.
In that you have learned to deepen your trust in the Lord because you didn't get what you wanted.
Yeah. Which,
think about that for a minute.
Oh man, that'll preach.
Your reward is not getting what you wanted because you learned to trust the Lord more.
Yeah. And I've lived that.
Totally.
And I think
absolutely.
a lot of us have.
Yeah.
If you really think about it. I mean, who in this life has gotten everything they wanted?
Yep.
So, anyways. Man, we are all about the... Y'all, we literally had one line.
I know.
For that point. So that was fun.
Okay. So then this next one, it kind of goes with the others. I'm just going to kind of give this analogy real quick because we both were like, oh yeah, that's a helpful way to look at it, is that a lot of times with this question, with this mentality, you're almost viewing God as a vending machine or a genie, you know, and if you think about how you use a vending machine, you put your money in, which is in this like analogy. Okay, I'm doing all the right things. I'm putting my input in, my money in, and then you pick the product that you want. You make your selection on the vending machine. And in this case, maybe you prayed a lot that you really wanted a husband and what you wanted him to be like and all these things. You put in your selection. Well, what does a vending machine do then? It spits out exactly what you asked for. But God does not work that way. He's not this vending machine where you just put in your request and you do all the right things and poof, exactly what you asked for is there. Yeah. And I mean, we just talked plenty about, that whole thing. So I'm not going to go into that more. I just wanted to make that analogy of that's almost like what you're reducing God to in your mind when you're doing this.
Mm-hmm. Well, and if you think about it too, the greatest gift you will ever receive is the gift of salvation. And you didn't have to do a single thing to get that. So why do you think that this totally undeserved, so far out of your reach gift, you didn't have to do anything to do? Why do you think you need to do something to get all these smaller ones? Yeah. And I mean, y'all, I'm preaching to the choir here. I'm saying, man, I really needed to hear this today. But just think about that. It's not like we talked about earlier, that formula of A plus B equals C. Right. You don't put in $1.25 and get out, your dream guy. That just doesn't work. If there is a vending machine for husbands, however,
we would not be opposed to doing some research.
No, please let us know. I'm waiting for Amazon to come out with them, honestly.
That'd be nice. Like they prime a husband to you, and then you're like,
like
I need to return this one. Take it back to an Amazon locker.
Take it to Kohl's. I would like to return this, please. No, thank you.
Oh my word, that'd be hilarious.
If only it were that easy.
I feel like there's a sitcom in there.
I think so. That would be really funny. We come up with so many great ideas on here.
I know.
Not to toot our own horn or anything.
Really funny though. Like this whole thing of like, you need a date for a Christmas party. Well, that's only $47.95 for the evening. But if you needed like a 3-month relationship, well, that's going to cost you a little bit more. And then you can upgrade that to like,
it's a Hallmark movie.
Yeah, it totally could be.
It could be. We just need to partner with Hallmark. There have been too many things. All right.
Anyway,
the last thing that you're, as you're questioning God, what more do you want from me, and how that allows you to view his, or kind of pushes you to view his character. The last thing you could you could be tempted to believe is that you view God's scope of knowledge as similar to yours or as limited as yours. And that's something my dad's told me since I was a little kid. He talks about how, Kristen, the Lord sees the whole parade and you see the float passing by. Yep. Like your vision is so limited. And it goes back to what we were talking about with eternity. He sees literally everything. And you can't even remember what happened, 6 weeks ago.
Not only that, but you see the float passing by and you see it standing on the ground looking at it. God sees the float passing by from above. I mean, figuratively and literally. Yeah. But like his view is there. He sees the whole float passing by. Like you just have this one little slice of, the present every time. Yeah. And his perspective, even on what you see, is entirely different.
Yeah. And you just never know what could be happening that's outside of your vision or understanding that could be affecting your current circumstances. I think going back to the losing weight analogy. So a few weeks ago, I had a great week with my eating, my workouts, all this stuff. So I, kept up with all my food. I stayed on track. I drank water. I worked out 6 days because I played tennis on the weekend. and was just feeling great, gained 2 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah. Talking about angry. Your girl was not happy. I was like, excuse me. Meanwhile, back over Christmas for 10 days, I ate like crap. And I don't think I exercised one time. And I only gained 2 pounds. So please tell me. Yeah. Bethany's face says it all. Y'all can't see
annoying.
it. It's so annoying. However, I had to remind myself, you know what? I have no idea what could be going on the inside of my body that could be affecting this. I could be retaining water. I could be, welcome to being a girl. I could, just different. I could have eaten something last night that was really salty and didn't realize it. Or I could, there are all kinds of things. Maybe your body just fluctuates, especially as a girl. Y'all know this. Your weight fluctuates ridiculously, like throughout the week. And I have no idea, but because I did all the right things, I was again disappointed because I didn't get the desired result, but I don't have the full picture. And so I went and ordered a smart scale right after that so I could get a little bit of a better picture. But we have to trust that, hey, you know what I think is good and what I want may seem really good right now based on what I know and my perspective, but I don't have the whole picture.
Yeah.
And so I've got to trust that what God says is good, what God says is best, is truly what's best for me because he does have the whole picture.
Yeah.
So that's where you've got to make that differentiation here.
Okay. Yes. So we have gone through all of these incorrect views now of what asking this question really says about your view of God's character. So let's take a few minutes now and look at what is actually true of God's character. So we've gotten to that point where we're like, okay, we know this is wrong. So what are those true things that we can tell ourselves that when we're taking those thoughts captive and turning that ship around, what can we tell ourselves is true about God's character? Now, we have several verses to go with each of these, but for the sake of time, we are going to put them all in and so you can refer back to them. I think this will be a good thing to have like as a resource to maybe commit them to memory. Put it on your bathroom mirror, those sorts of things to refer back to. So we're going to send you guys in the newsletter tomorrow. We're going to put a whole host of verses to kind of go with these, but then also for you to refer back to. So we're going to go through these quickly, but there's a more in-depth look at the verses coming out tomorrow.
And if you're listening to this after like Thursday morning, then we'll just keep this in the newsletter for the month.
Oh yeah, good call.
And that way, if you sign up anytime in the month of April of 2021, if you're way ahead in time and listening back to this, that's awesome. But April 2021, if you sign up, we'll keep this in the newsletter so you have it.
Perfect. Okay. So what is actually true of God's character? He is a generous God who loves giving good things to his children. Now, in our notes here, I put good in quotes a little bit because that doesn't just mean what you want. It doesn't just mean what you think is good. It means like truly good in God's economy. He loves giving those things to his children. And our thought should be to align ourselves with what God says is good, not be upset that he's not giving us what we want. And I think a lot of times we've misunderstood what God has promised, what that good is. And then we also kind of equate it to mean every little thing we want. So yes, God is generous. He is good. He is not withholding those things that we think we want just because he wants to.
Yeah. And God is also faithful always. Hebrews 13:8 says Jesus is the same yesterday and today and forever. Like he's faithful in the past. He's going to be faithful right now, and he's going to be faithful in the future. Yeah. He's also concerned with the condition of your heart more than anything else. You go into 1 Samuel 16 where Samuel's trying to identify who's going to be king, and they think it's going to be David's older brother, and it's not. And the Lord makes it very clear, like, I don't care what he looks like. I don't care if he looks like a king. I don't care if he checks all the boxes. His heart's not in the right place. Yeah. And so in this case, like we're talking, God is way more concerned with the condition of your heart than what you're doing for him, quote unquote, I keep saying quote unquote, but you checking all the boxes like we've talked about. And his love is unending regardless of your works. Psalm 136 talks about that. It doesn't matter. Thank the Lord that, because there are going to be weeks where you are on your game, man. You are up early. You are in your Bible. You are, church is great. You just feel like you and the Lord are on the same track, and there are going to be weeks where you're like, Lord, are you even there? Like and he hasn't gone anywhere.
Exactly.
You've pulled back, or you feel like there's a distance, even though there's not, but his love is unending and stays the same regardless of what that looks like.
Yeah. And then too, not only is his love unending, but he is all knowing, and his wisdom and his understanding are unfathomable. And in Isaiah 40 is the verse that goes with that. I think it's verse 28, where it talks about he does not faint or grow weary, and his understanding is unsearchable. And so not only is his love unending, but it is a wise and all-knowing love, which that I think is what, like I say that like that's the only thing, but I would say that is what separates us from God. There's a lot of things, but go with me for a second. In that, like, yes, his love is unending, but it is perfectly wise and perfectly timed and perfectly perfect in its understanding and wisdom is what I'm trying to say, where ours is not. And so the scope of it is so much better because of that. And then not only those things, but then he's your protector. He is protecting you, and you never know from what or from who. Psalm 18 verse 30 talks about this, when it says he is a shield for all those who take refuge in him. The word of the Lord proves true. He is a shield for all those who take refuge in him. He is your protector, and his way is perfect. So you can rest in that. He's perfectly loving. He's all knowing, and he's looking to protect you from what or from who you don't even know.
And that's so freeing to when you really boil it down, because it's like, I don't have to worry. And I don't have to freak out about this, because I can trust that God is sovereign all the time. And if something works out, it's because he wants it to work out. And if it doesn't, then it's not supposed to. And who knows, like you said, what could he be protecting me from? I may never know, but I can trust that he is a shield for me, and that he's not going to fail me in that sense. Yeah.
And then on top of all of those things, we know that he wants nothing but the best good for his children. So, we talk about, oh, God is generous. Well, that's great. But is he looking out for your best interests? He's faithful. Well, great. Is it to your true benefit? He is loving and all of these things, but if he's not wanting good for his children, that's not going to be very helpful. But we know it talks about Romans 8:28, and this is the verse that all things work together for good. You hear that so many times, but that good is that you become more like Jesus, that all things work together for the good of those who love God and are called according to his purpose. And that good is that he will make you look more like Christ. That is the good, whether it feels good, whether it seems good, whatever it is, that is what he's always looking out for his children.
Yeah. And you also look at Ephesians 3:20, which is my favorite verse, that God is able to do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine. So even what we think is good, or even if, what happens ends up being different, we're like, oh, this is good. Like, it's going to be so much better. Then it's so easy for us to put God in a box, I feel like, because again, of our limited understanding and our, very little pinhole of a perspective. And it's like, no, God wants to blow your expectations out of the water. And so we need to be expectant of that and look forward to that and believe that he can and that he will, instead of thinking, oh, well, I guess, if it doesn't work how I want, it's all going to be fine. It's going to be better than fine. Like, it's going to be so good.
Well, and two, we can put this in the newsletter too. I love...
This newsletter's going to be packed, y'all. I need to make a list before we leave.
When you think about that whole about immeasurably more and so much bigger and all these things, I can never remember which exact chapters it is. I know it's 38 and 39 of Job, where, Job has questioned God, and Job has, asked him all these questions, and God says, okay, now I'm going to ask you some questions, Job. And he goes into this, it's at least 38 and 39. I don't remember if it goes into 40, it may keep going, where God is just saying, okay, Job, I think he's telling him to be ready like a man, basically. And he asks him things like, where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? Who determined its measurements? And he talks about who shut in the sea with doors and who knows where the storehouses of the snow and the hail are. And like all of these things. And he talks about my favorite. I always think of this when you go to the beach. And he talks about he set the boundaries of the waves. Like you will go this far and no further. And you watch those waves come and you watch the tide go in and out. And you just think about a God who created an ocean, who created a world and said, okay, I mean, how many waves that is? But he knows the exact boundary and set it of every single one of those waves that comes in and goes out. Try to fathom that type of like immeasurably more, that type of bigness. We can't, but that's when I say that's the God we're dealing with, that sounds so trite and so. But what else?
It's true.
What else can I say?
Yeah.
So, yes, if I feel anything, if you ever get to that place, whether it's just asking this question of, okay, what more do you want from me? Or you're getting a little too big for your britches, as my grandparents would always say. Go read these chapters in Job. Mm-hmm. It will humble you and you'll say, oh, I never even thought about that being a thing, much less established it and know where everything is. Like,
it's so humbling.
It is.
It really is.
That would be my final charge, I think.
Yeah. Thinking about this reminded me, we were planning for this episode yesterday, and it's a Lisa Turker's quote that she's, I think, put in several of her books, but she says, God is good to me, and God is good at being God. Mm-hmm. And if you just remember those three things, that's going to get you through a lot.
Yeah.
Hey, God is good. God is always good. Whether it feels good, whether your circumstances seem good, he is good. He is good to you and wants what's best for you. And he's good at being God, and we are not. You want to add that little tangent on at the end where you think you've got it all figured out and all the answers and I can handle this. No, he's the one that's good at being God. Obviously, if he can set up where the waves stop at the very least.
Yeah.
And all the other things. So just... I would leave you with that of remembering those three things. And we'll put that, I'll put that at the bottom of whatever this little PDF is that we create with all these verses and truths of God's character. But reminding yourself of these things, again, committing them to memory, whatever you need to do is really going to be the key to kind of dealing with the thoughts that come along with asking God, what more do you want from me?
Yeah.
So
I think that's a good place to stop right there.
I think so too. Well, thanks guys for joining us. This has been a fun episode. Like I said, the newsletter is going to be packed tomorrow. So if you're listening to this on the day it comes out, be sure to go and sign up for the newsletter if you haven't already, either at our Instagram bio at LFTM_podcast or on our website lookingforthemiddle.com. And we will send that out tomorrow morning. But we'll be back next week with another full-length episode. But until then, I'm Kristen.
And I'm Bethany.
And this is Looking for the Middle.